Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of the SportsTech Allstars podcast. This is your host, Rowan, once again. Today, we actually had a really interesting conversation about the broadcasting space in India, especially around how broadcasters monetize the rights that they pay quite a lot for. Conversation was with Rajat Baweja, who is the lead for content partnerships at Star Sports. Essentially, it is his job once the once Star Sports is paid X value for whatever rights, how do they make sure that their P&L every year stays positive? How do they get their money back from brands, from activations in different ways? Fascinating conversation about covering a variety of ways that the Walt Disney Company, which is the parent company of Star Sports, do this for specific properties. Rajat works for non-cricket. So for anybody looking to get an overview of what is happening in the Indian sports broadcasting space, this is a great conversation for you to follow. Rajat is a self-confessed tennis nut. He's a Novak Djokovic fan. 26 is the new 26 is a Novak Djokovic coach that Rajat quite likes. Just says that we have plenty of time to go and lots to do in this fast-changing space of sports broadcasting. Hope you enjoy this episode. Rajat, thank you for joining us. As always, I'm interested in speaking with anybody who's doing interesting work around sports broadcasting, either live or after the event. I know you do some things around content and fan engagement and stuff. But before I get into your role within the Star Sports, within the Disney company family in India, I want to know a little bit about you as a person. What brought you into sports, shall we say? Because I know you've done a few different things before that.
Yeah, so thank you first of all for having me here, and I hope I'm able to do the right job to give you the right narrative in sports. But yeah, I landed in sports. I mean, I am the usual engineer MBA guy in one of those who wants to get a great corporate career and so tag on my profile. At least started with that. So I started my journey with FMCG, went to telecom, and then landed in Star Sports because I've always been part of sales for ecosystems where I give ammunition to my frontline sales team to go into the market and have a clear part in the GTM strategy. So that's what my specialization was always, and that's what I was hired for in Star Sports. I started with cricket solutioning roles. Then for good 3 years, 3 months or so, I moved into non-cricket and started with internet content, scaled up to social media, and then social media I got into Pro Kabaddi League, which is one of the second biggest non-cricket leagues in India, and then moved on to take over the full portfolio of non-cricket broadcasting that we have. Because of course, I am sure you understand that because the broadcasting piece has to be renewed after every certain period. The rights that we have keep getting changed, keep getting renewed year
Yep.
after year or after every 2 years. So maybe after 2 years, I'll not be selling the same set of properties that I'm selling today. But today I have to focus on ensure that I am able to not only break even, but book profits on broadcasting licensing fees that I have paid as a broadcaster to the league. So just to give you an example, I mean, the biggest numbers that are always thrown are for cricket in India and average number of 20,000 crores for broadcasting rights of TV for 5 years on the IPL and another 20,000 crores. So to ensure that the overall company is not just breaking even, but also losing profits on the fees that they've paid BCCI for securing IPL rights to show it to the audiences on Stars.
And I think that was a big part of why we wanted to speak to you, Rajat, because I think this whole conversation around what media companies are paying for to acquire sports rights. In India, of course, the big conversation is around the IPL and the crazy fees that they pay there. But for example, your parent company famously got into a bit of a wrangle with the NBA recently in a very sizable deal, which ticketed, I think, final ticket was $77 billion over an 11-year period. And WBD, Warner Brothers Discovery, along through their arm TNT, had some issues and eventually didn't get that ticket. But that size of that check that they got, they didn't expect somebody else to come in with a big ticket, right? And they thought it would be lower or whatever the case may be without going into the details. But this idea of what value the distributor, this broadcast company will put in onto that sports rights and how they monetize. That's the conversation I think that we really would like to get into with you and just get your perspective. Also, really appreciated that you are non-cricket because there's a big conversation around India and everything seems to be around cricket. But of course, as sports fans, we need the whole market to grow, not just the athletic side on the Olympics, but the football, the kabaddi, the tennis, or whatever it is, the school and college athletics, the
Yeah.
school and college sports. So that's the context of where I want this conversation to go also for our listeners. So we've got somebody here whose job it is to make sure that PNL comes out positive based on whatever rights he or she pays to the sports leagues, right? So I think we've set the context pretty okay. So now walk me through what your day-to-day is. So you mentioned Pro Kabaddi League, right? Which is a unique use case in itself because Star Sports started as a founding partner, right, for
Yes.
that league, where the broadcaster was like in there right from the start. And now I think there has been a bit of a, it was challenged the league as well because how do they grow their value if they can't sell their broadcasting rights because the broadcaster has equity in the league? Let's maybe spend a couple of minutes there. What does that look like from your perspective? How do you manage that P&L at your end?
So, of course, I mean, the fact that Star Sports has been a very big stakeholder in the operations and running the operations of the league makes it an interesting state because the fact that we've skin in the game, okay, to put it simply. And that's what led to the rise of Kabaddi in India.
Yep.
When I started watching Kabaddi, just to give you an anecdote, I was working for another FMCG company. And when I used to go to the gym, there was a gym in the office. Season 1 of PKL was being broadcasted that time. We all of us just used to, I mean, the gym instructor used to just put it on and everybody was just glued on to the television screens because the game moves really fast. So there, to begin with, we've ensured that when we introduced the Pro Kabaddi, there were a set of rules were introduced or modified to ensure, first of all, that it is the viewer, the consumer, to the end consumer. So even if you start sampling Kabaddi, you will tend to stick on to it and consume it more and more and more. So that's one way to go about it, and that's how you think it becomes famous. Second thing is that once when we know we have the skin in the game, we know that the right consumer insight in India is about building heroes. If there was, I mean, at one point in time, one broadcaster started building Dhoni as the next best thing that has happened to cricket after Sachin Tendulkar, and it was. And when we lifted the World Cup in 2011, then the next big thing was Virat Kohli. Next big thing was Rohit Sharma. And now then maybe the next big thing is Hardik Pandya, even though he may be out falling in and out of favors of the audiences. But the point is that hero building is a very important aspect part of growing a sport. And that is what we did as a broadcaster. And
Globally
that's
also,
what we
by the
did.
way, it's not just in India.
Yeah.
This hero
Yeah.
building is a big part of sports. Full stop.
Yeah. But I also feel, I mean, it's a very let's say if I talk about the IPL, there are a lot of people who follow Chennai Super Kings because Dhoni is playing. So to be a team loyalist versus a player loyalist, I think it's a little bit of a very thin line between that. Okay, so I personally feel that Indians are more face followers, hero followers, and which is completely
Yeah.
an Indian right thing to do. Now the point is that we built heroes also in PKL to ensure that the sport, the right of fandom, if I have to put it, the club, the franchise teams are also doing a lot of things. So we work very closely with them. So what happened was when rights got renewed, and of course at that time there were conversations around whether Stars should get it, not get it, because the franchise teams had only worked with one broadcaster till this point, right? So they of course had issues and they did not know what to do, what to compare or what to not, and that's why there was a sentiment in the market that why would Star Sports come again and bulldoze their way. But I think the rights fees which actually got decided, and we because Mashal Sports is the company which is the equivalent, let's say, like how BCCI runs the IPL. There is a company called Mashal Sports, in which 75% stake rests with Star, and this is public knowledge. Now, even with that, there is a hit that happens on the PNL of sports where an X crores goes to Mashal Sports, and that X crores is a big amount. Not sure again if it's a public level amount. It should be, but a lot of it, because the bigger that amount is, that means a bigger share of that is going to go to the franchise teams, which is the same
Mhm.
operating model in an IPL as well. I mean, one of the biggest earning points for any franchise team in the IPL are the huge broadcasting rights
Right.
that they pay, right? And they don't even need to ensure that their merchandise or ticket sales are adding up to it because the PNL becomes positive at that time only for an IPL franchise team. So similarly, if I have to talk about the valuation of a PKL franchise team, it more than makes up for the amount that we pay as a broadcaster to Mashal, and then Mashal further distributes it to PKL franchise teams. And that way, the model works really well, is what I feel. Star Sports has the rights for the Pro Kabaddi League for 3 more years, which is season 11, 12, and 13. And from 14 again, if there is enough meat in the market, I'm sure there will be somebody else. With the merger happening, of course, there is already conversation around the fact that we are going to be the number one sports entity and the only two other players. In fact, the only major player that then will be Sony as a broadcast. So yeah, I don't think so. Their rights are going anywhere else as of now. One more interesting thing is that in the cycle of, because I've just witnessed the journey of the player. From the pre-COVID season to the post-COVID season, there was a big gap because it's a contact sport, and to be able to build a full bio bubble ecosystem around a contact sport, it was not going to be easy. And how do we? So the gap between two seasons is very long. That I think really impacted the growth of Kabaddi this country. And I think that we are still making up for those losses because it was going on a very good trajectory. What happens is between two IPLs, there is a lot of cricket action that happens. There is a bilateral series. India is
Yeah.
going to play in some other countries. The countries coming to play in India. There will be, of course, there will be some of the other ICC tournament, which will be a World Championship or whatever it is, right? So there is enough action for consumers or for the viewers to keep getting a share of the pie or to keep having a high recall for cricket. In any case, cricket is high in the country. But what happens between two PKL seasons? There is not enough action that people get exposed to on Kabaddi to keep their overall recall on Kabaddi high, and that's why when we go to the market with our next season pitch, we do face a bit of a struggle. But yes, that's what we are also solving in longer.
That's part of it. Just for listeners who don't know what merger we were referring to, that is, of course, the Disney and Reliance, Reliance Jio, Reliance Industries
Yeah.
merger, which is an $8.5 billion merger, if I'm not mistaken. Right, that was the
Yes.
value that was at least publicly announced. So this is a merger of behemoths, Disney and Reliance, who will basically run sports in India. I don't think there's anybody else. Sony, he mentioned, who might be somewhat of a competitor, but there is a concern there. But at least for now, it seems that this will be the house where all the sports rights will sit. They already basically do between these two entities, and now they're merging, and that'll be the end of it. Okay, so the PKL use case I find interesting because it's a big question is how do you grow a sport if the broadcasting rights can't grow? But it sounds like you're saying that the broadcasting rights will kind of be dictated by the market, and Star
Yeah.
Sports will always, or Disney, whatever entity you want to call it, will pay close to, if not absolutely, the market share. And if there is a second bidder, then the leagues or the franchises are welcome to invite them and make the offer. And if that's it, that's it. If it's not, then we will pay what it is and go from there.
Yeah. I just remembered that this figure is a publicly available figure. So the amount that Star Sports has paid Mashal is 900 crores for 5 years. Which means 180 crore per year is the hit that we take, and to ensure that we are making more than that.
Got it.
A lot of it was possible because there was a title sponsor called Vivo. If you remember, it was called the Vivo Pro
Yeah,
Kabaddi
yeah.
League. We don't have that anymore, but that was one of the biggest balancers in the overall money that was raised.
Brilliant. So now let's talk about that. And then you can maybe expand it outside of just Kabaddi into all the other sports that you look at, because this is an interesting thing about where you recover that value from. And I think, yeah, okay, your mega sponsors will be the biggest part of that ticket, right? Out of, let's say it's 180 crores, they're probably paying, I don't know, 70% of it, if not more, that you're gathering from those key title sponsors. But then you still have to find different ways that you're generating
Yeah.
value either from fans, that how are they paying in, what are the microtransactions that we can get from fans? How do we engage with them in a better way to improve the value at the next cycle? Because that's a big part of the conversation, right? I need to make my P&L green or positive every year this year, but I have to make sure that my value overall rights are appreciating for the next round as well. How do you think of that? I don't know how much you want to share. I'll leave that to your discretion, but how much of it is just a couple of meetings, which is the big chunk, which comes from the main sponsors? And then how do you look to monetize and strategize and then innovate with this long tail of generating commercial engagement, let's say, from that sports right that you paid?
Okay, so I'll just give you. I mean, I don't think so there is any information that I'm going to talk about is hidden per se or confidential in any way. But primarily, there are two ways for a broadcaster to earn in India. There is subscription revenue, there is an advertising revenue. Subscription revenue is what I earn when you subscribe to a channel from a DTH, let's say a Tata Sky or a Sun TV or Dish TV. In the new regime that has come in India, which happened in 2020, I could choose specific channels. It was not up to the cable provider or that you take this pack and you get 280 channels, and then you know the bouquet of star channels gets their share of revenue. No, it doesn't work like that anymore. It is more consumer friendly now that I can pick and choose channels. So I pay 22 rupees, and they've set a cap at a maximum that you can charge a consumer for a channel is 22 rupees. And, so each for Star Sports, let's say, I charge 22 rupees for a HD channel, a high definition feed, and 19 rupees for a low definition, standard definition feed. So the great part is that at least 40 to 50% revenues come from subscription. And that's why it is very necessary for a broadcaster to build those right properties in their ecosystem. If I have the best property on my channel, people will ensure that they have it, they subscribe to Star Sports they don't have to worry about whether it is part of this pack or not this pack, which was a confusion with me earlier before I even came into Star Sports, that I always wanted to ensure that I have the best English movie channels and the sports channels, and all the travel and entertainment channels. So to get that full mix of channels, I used to end up paying much more than I currently do. So I could pick and choose, and that's why it became a very important part of the overall ecosystem uh, that you have the right properties on your channel to ensure that people are subscribing to your channel. Then once you have the right properties on your channel, you have the full calendar with you. You can tell people that okay, there's going to be an IPL, there's going to be a World Cup, there's going to be Wimbledon, then there's going to be a Pro Kabaddi League, then there's going to be this series, that series, everything. That's so that the consumer stays subscribed. So that contributes to 40 to 50%. Then the rest of it comes from ad revenues. Okay, now ad revenues are uske baad, of course, now I hope you understand the similar parallel runs for the digital the business as well. I
Yeah.
pay for a sort of premium and I get to subscribe to the certain services, right? Although interestingly, kabaddi and now cricket as well is outside the paywall, thanks to my dear friends at
At
Reliance
Reliance.
who decided that they will make IPL free of cost. The only thing you have to do is download the app and pay for the data. One thing that is interesting is that to consume one full match, a T20, you require 25 GB of data, right? So you have to ensure that you have the right plan, prepaid plan to complement that, which of course Geo did.
Hey, that's what vertical integration gives you when you bring all there are many ways to monetize. You don't have to charge for
Yeah,
the actual game. If you
exactly.
have that, if you have that.
Yeah, so even Hotstar used to do that. When Hotstar had IPL on their network, even Hotstar used to do it, but the seamless way in which what Geo can do because they control
Yeah.
stakes in both. Of course, that's better. Coming back to the ad revenues. Ad revenues have now that everything is outside the paywall on digital, everything has to be ad revenue only. But typically, sport like cricket, the revenues between a sponsor and we call it the spot buyer. A spot buyer is somebody who only buys a certain secondage of inventory, whereas a sponsor buyer gets a lot more for the amount of money that they are paying more, and because they are paying money in bulk, but they also get a lot of things outside of FCT, is what we call it, the commercial time, which is the on-air time. That is the ad that you see between two overs on cricket. Beyond that, what do you get? Because every year I have to go and ask for a bigger chunk of revenue, a bigger chunk of their marketing spends. So how do I keep doing that? That's where a lot of non-FCT solutioning based monetization comes in, which is what I have been a very big part of in my initial part of my career at Star Sports and still do for non-cricket. But essentially, this is what happens in cricket. For a sport like kabaddi, the skew is how you were saying 70% to 80% is sponsorships because and 20% is for I don't know the exact I don't know, I won't be able to explain you the exact science why is it so skewed in kabaddi,
That's fine.
but
Yeah.
it's the clutter is much lesser. If you see, there will be maximum 8 to 12 sponsors. 12 is the peak, but 8 is the average number of sponsors that you have on kabaddi during any season. So the one of our sales spiel when we go to the market is also that when you associate with PKL, your brand gets higher visibility as part of the match. Not only because there are lesser number of brands, also because the field of play is very tight in kabaddi. If you've seen a
Hmm.
match on cricket, the ball races to a certain part of the
Sure.
stadium, and only then you can see your brand. Of course, then the number of
So time on screen
breaks.
is better predictable. Yeah.
Yeah, time on screen is and that time on screen that you get is only when you are a sponsor, not
Right.
just buying inventory. Because the number of breaks that cricket gives you, and it's such a brilliant game like that. After every over, I have a 45-second break. I have a chance to and chance to make money, right? On sports like PKL, or for that matter basketball, or for that matter football. I don't have that chance, right? 45 in a football, I have two halves of 45 or 440 or four, two halves of 20 minutes in PKL. That way it works much better for cricket. I can come and say that I only want Chennai Super King matches, and I want 60 seconds of inventory every PKL, every Chennai match. So that's why the number of spot buyers, hence the contribution of sponsors from cricket is lesser. Did that answer that you were asking?
Sort of. Yeah. I guess so. Coming back to that question again, so I think you've explained the first part of it, which is the how the contribution around the advertising works, right? I guess my question will then the follow up to that would be, so how do you manage to keep the main sponsors happy? Like, what else are you offering them? What you talked about, the non like screen
FCT.
time, yeah, the
Yeah,
FC
yeah,
non
yeah,
FCT, whatever you. But how do you? Because you have to find new activations, right? That's your job. You have to
yeah,
find new smart ways that I'm presenting the fans or the viewers with
yeah,
your brand, your product. So you're always
yeah.
looking for new engagements. Like a small example, I think during this IPL, I think I saw was in Maruti or somebody who I think was one of the cars, right? Who did some AR stuff in studio, and
Yes, yes,
there
yeah,
are those are interesting things that's exactly
yeah,
what we're interested in. Like on the innovation side, we saw and another company that did it as well. We've had them on the spot. The guys who when Steve Smith is explaining technique to you in Hindi, right, in
yes,
his
yes,
voice with his
yes,
cadence, and he's speaking in
yes,
Hindi. Well, it's obviously not him. It's a AI which is dubbed and
yes,
dubbed his voice with the intonation. And that was also a sponsored segment now, right? And they're doing, I think it was, I forget the name of the brand. But these are different ways that you are pitching to brands and say, hey, we can do this with you, we can do
yeah,
that with you. So I
yeah.
guess part of your team or maybe your own remit is to find these activations constantly, no?
Yeah, yeah. So we are working very closely with the team, which is responsible for all the broadcast operations in the content team that we have at Star Sports. We work very closely with them to find out what is it that we can do new. Okay, what is it that
Yeah.
we can do better? As I said, there is only going to, let's say, a big company like an Amazon to ask them for a share of a marketing expense. They have every 6 months they are going to have a big sale, and they're going to have a lot of marketing budgets around. And every year I'm going to ask for them for a higher price. So what is it that I can do for them? To start with, the best thing I will do is, because I have access to certain set of experts like an Irfan Pathan, like there are a great number of names that big names that are part of my panel or part of my roster when a big tournament is right. I will tie up with them, get a much better price because they are already on my panel, and get them to do something for the brand. That is one how should I lower hanging fruit, even though it entails a certain cost. Even though Steve Smith is on my panel, he will come for a certain cost, which is expensive. If
Hmm.
I and then there is Irfan in all my the Indian experts that I have access to. There is an Irfan Pathan. There could be a Piyush Chawla. There could be a Navjot Singh Sidhu, and the likes of these big names which brands can associate with, and I can make a to put it simply, a 30-second or new commercial for them. Whereas because broad con- uh, content curation and broadcast is my capability, and hence that is what matters, because I can make and another thing that I can add to it is maybe when let's say uh, just to give, because I'm talking about Amazon, and I can make a good 30-second or creative for them with Irfan Pathan inside my own studio. And
Hmm.
when that commercial will appear, it will just maybe look a very seamless part of broadcast, and the fan or a consumer may not even feel that they're going into a break. But technically, it is a break where I'm playing the 30-second where Irfan Pathan is saying that, oh, while you're watching cricket, just in the break, you can just pick up your phone and shop for this or shop for that. Just giving you a random example.
Yep.
Great that you also know the Maruti example, and that is another thing that the car becomes a very seamless part of the broadcast without even going into a break. On Pro Kabaddi, we have this thing called there is an AR that we do. Sure if you guys have seen that. There is a it's again publicly available, and you guys can, maybe I can, if there was a screen sharing option, I could show you guys here. But there is a full bag of Ultratech cement that appears on the mat, and then the commentator says something which about Ultratech, which contextually marries with what is happening in the game. So to give you an example, Ultratech always talks about that you have one opportunity to make a house, so make it with the number one cement. And the commentator will add on to it that the players also have only one opportunity to win this game because it's a crucial game, or this certain player has only one opportunity to do something.
Mm-hmm.
So just these are examples on how we closely work with the team to ensure that what is it that we can do. We may not always find a sponsor for it, but to know that this is our capability always helps in taking our pitch to the market on what we can do. Yeah, that's where we are. Another that, because you spoke about the C Smith example, I'll give you one more example. Is that we use the same tech to, so as part of our pitches, right? I mean, you have to have a certain that you do to the clients, right? I mean, you approach 400 clients and eventually 15 finally on board with you. But to go to those 400 clients with customized pitches takes a lot of effort, right?
Mm-hmm.
So what we did is we did a small shoot with Mahesh Bhupati before the Wimbledon started. I mean, 45 days before Wimbledon started. And while Mahesh Bhupati is not the most expressive guy in front of camera, he is still a Indian tennis legend. And the spiel that we recorded from him is that, hey, so what he said is that, hey, Rohan, I'll be glad to have you as a partner with us on Wimbledon, and Wimbledon offers X, Y, Z things, and these are the best
Okay.
things that any brand. And then again, I mean, he would say the name of the company, he would say the name of the person, and we would again customize that with the AI, I mean, tech that we had with the same tech that was used for Steve Smith. Because
Okay.
apparently there are a lot of restrictions on what kind of AI we can use in Disney. So we use the same tech to roll out some 250 different versions of Mahesh Bhupati's video where he's addressing every person differently. I mean, he's addressing the managing director of Amul, and then he's also addressing the managing director of Castrol, and so on and so forth. So
Brilliant. I
yeah,
wonder there are versions of Mahesh Bhupati which he would be like, hey, I didn't know about that one, or I didn't say hi to
yeah,
that brand.
no,
Yeah,
he
but it's,
knows, he knows.
of course, he did. He signed a contract, so he knows what he's doing when he's recording it in the first place. But I find this
Yeah.
curious, and this is so. I guess I'll come back to the question again because this is the part that I find fascinating, Rajat. Is that we see a lot of European leagues and Americans are a bit more further ahead in terms of how they experiment and how they incorporate this sort of cutting edge technology, really. Because the company that we're talking about, I don't mind taking the name. I don't know if you want to, but I mean they're pretty new. They've just raised a significant round of funding. I've spoken to the founders there as well. This is not like, I don't know, this is not IBM or Microsoft. There's some huge company which has got like it's all well established or no, but you're taking a bit of a risk here, right? You're working with a young innovative company. I'm sure on the AR side there are things that are being built in house. I know you have Star Lab, which maybe is supplying some of this innovation as well. So my question comes back to how do you find this? How do you engage with it? What is the process? Do you just have, I don't know, the start of the season, you have a bunch of your team, hey, go find me some interesting potential activations and then let's shortlist and then try to engage? Or is this a cycle that you do continuously? Is it part of your team? Is it somewhere else? Like, who is driving this to every year, at the start of a new season? No, we're going to bring something new. We're going to bring something cool because that's the goal, right? You're looking for something new, something interesting. So how do you find that?
So there is no fixed process for it. And one of the things that you had asked in the beginning, that what problems do we solve for, and how do you solve for it? I was just, I mean, when I was trying to figure out what's the answer to that question, is that the answer is very simple. You have to be on the lookout, because I'm in this profession, and I just, the way I consume sports today is different than how I used to consume sports when I was not in star sports, let's say. Okay.
Sure.
So we are always lookout on what is happening across all global leagues. Not sure if you can recall, there was this example of, I can't recall the brand. Basically, it was an ice hockey match, and there was this fast foods brand. I think it was the pasta brand or something that did full AR play out on the field of play with their cameras, where a full hand where the ground breaks, a hand comes out and eats that thing and then takes it inside. Groundbreaking innovation, I must say, for 7 years back
Okay.
in that
Fair
I
enough.
saw it. Yeah. So I think we have to be on the lookout. We just keep sharing these examples, and if you really like something, that we want to do. Let's say if there is an activation that I recently saw that was happening for everyone who's registering, because the brand wanted to do a lot of first party data collection, and the name of the person or the favorite number of that person would appear on the jersey of the team that they want to support, not just in a picture, but in the actual match in a way, right? So that the company did that. I don't know if they did that with NBA or with somebody else, but we wanted to do the same at least for Pro Kabaddi, because we thought that this is something that is groundbreaking with respect to having my own name on my favorite player's jersey and he is donning it. That becomes a big deal for me.
Yeah. Jeez.
Yeah, right. So and even though that player may be just walking from X point and just entering the field of play, not actually playing the game, but I personally think it's a big deal.
So the athlete is physically wearing the jersey, or you doing some, let's say, manipulation and camera work?
Manipulation,
Yeah. Okay.
manipulation,
Yeah, yeah.
manipulation. Uh, that's
Okay, got
that's
it.
what I
Interesting, but
think.
that's still cool. That's still super cool. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I to again give you an answer in short, we have to always be on the lookout for what's happening. And just
Got it.
again, if there is something that we find that is happening, uh, to be able to incorporate it in the live broadcast, whether that's something that my content team can do with the capabilities that they have, and especially more that the time bandwidth that they have, because they are also running on a lot of deadlines, and internal collaboration becomes key to executing a project like this. And I'm sure you would have heard of uh, the Airtel integration that was done on the IPL 23, where each fan was getting a chance while they were at some separate different locations. They were just wearing a suit, and their avatar was appearing on the stage
Okay.
for a live show where Irfan Pathan and the anchor was interacting with the guy in real time and
Okay.
celebrating with that fan that, okay, oh, you're a Punjab Kings fan and let's cheer for the team for X, Y, Z. And that becomes an integration for Airtel because they are also a lot about their own 5G tech, or the full G campaign communication that they have was around tech.
Super interesting. Yeah. So I guess it sounds like y'all are basically, as you said, watching the market, looking for best practices, constantly watching a lot of sports. Also, it seems
Yeah,
you're looking to other leagues, other broadcasters,
yeah,
and seeing what they're doing and what works, which is a great way to do it, right or wrong. I mean, because I can imagine you get a lot of inbound, you don't know where to go, how to manage, how to test. But here you know that this is a league that's done it. So there is a solution behind it. You can either contact the
yeah.
solution provider or just find another way to get it done yourself, and you know that you can launch it. Fantastic, Rajat. That is super interesting to hear. I want to bring us home. Clearly, we're just motoring along. We've already covered quite a bit. I want to bring us home here. Give you the flow. Tell us what is new and exciting that's coming up in the next 12, 18 months, at least, that you can publicly share.
So see, again, as I told you, see, I am on the business side of things, and there have been a lot of, personally, I've seen in the last 6 months only. So then the amount of exposure that I'm getting to uh, so much progress that is happening in the field of sports. I personally think that is going to be the game changer for us. Things that I currently, uh, even things that I take currently for granted today when I'm watching in my sports experience were not possible maybe even 2 years back. So I'm just looking out for those opportunities. I can't pinpoint that, okay, this is what I think is going to happen. But I personally feel that there are that we are just scratching the surface. There have been a lot of innovations that we now see on cricket as well, but we've not seen that across other sports. And it is time that all the other bigger sports, the bigger leagues also take on those innovations in hand and do something about them that can be executed for brands, because my bread and butter is about keeping the brands happy for all the non-FCT monetization or solutioning that I offer to them. Then what is it that we can do? What is it? How do you make the overall brand go from there? Just recalling a brand to actually going to have a purchase intent on the
Mm-hmm.
brand, right? And I personally feel that that AI has a big role to play in getting that done, because one of the best examples for me that a brand did is I don't know if you know what, I could be a part of a creative television creative that Dark Fantasy ITC brand, the premium
Mm, the
biscuits, the premium
biscuits,
cookie
right? Yeah.
brand done. that my face could be morphed onto somebody else's face, and I could be in the same creator's. And that's disruptive. I mean, I'm sure there are much bigger things that are happening, but for a brand to be able to bring it to scale, to
Yeah,
the kind of scale that we saw, or for the kind of scale that Mondelez did for their Savory Dairy Milk campaign, which I could see each and every retailer around me in the pin code that I have, or not sure if you'll remember that campaign that happened somewhere years, or it was about somebody sing basically having happy birthday song in my own name, customized. Again, yeah, doing a lot of stuff there. So these are the things that I feel are great opportunities, integration opportunities, moments that we can look at in order to monetize better, as well as ensure that the overall game viewing experience for a fan always keeps going up.
interesting. Fascinating, Rajat. Fascinating to hear about how you're thinking of growing the sports. And it makes sense that you just have to find ways to amplify your commercial partner. And if you can keep doing that consistently, delivering value there, then that commercial agreement will keep going up and it allows you to invest more and give back more to the fans in some way. So it's cyclical. And this is well proven in sports. Thank you so much for taking the time. We are recording this on a Sunday. I can let my audience know. So I appreciate you taking the time to speak with us. Before I let you go, I have one last question to ask. It is my favorite question to do. So what has been your favorite sporting moment?
Fortunately, my favorite sporting moment came just a while back when I saw Djokovic winning the gold medal.
Oh,
It
wow.
was exhilarating. It was exhilarating. I wanted to cry with him, if you ask me. The interesting part is that I had become a Djokovic fan just 3 or 4 years back. I have always wondered, like every media journalist and every fan, that why is it that Djokovic doesn't get love? And I am a cutthroat Roger Federer and Nadal fan. From Roger Federer, Nadal grew on me. But from Nadal, nobody else grew. And I was trying to find my next person. But to jog your memory back to 2021 French Open semi-finals where Djokovic defeated Nadal. Of course, Nadal was not in the best shape, I understand.
Mm-hmm.
They put up a great fight. I think that is when my perception changed. I have few Djokovic fans around me and they always get booed down as Djokovic fans do. But yes, that was the best sporting memories. One of my biggest regrets is also that on the day India lifted the T20 World Cup, I was on a flight. So that by the time I landed, I couldn't see the live broadcast. I was following it on ESPN Cricket Info commentary. But yeah, I could see the stuff.
Well,
So yes.
always great to have a tennis fan on here and good to give Novak some love in what was also an incredible final as well. It was just two sets,
Yeah.
but two mad sets against the next against this next superstar of tennis. So
Yeah,
someone to look forward to for the future.
I think the 2023 final was also something that I mean it was just hanging on the by a very thin thread. Could have gone anyway. And
You're talking about
yeah,
Wimbledon again between the two of them.
the final of 2023. So
Last. Okay. Yeah.
yeah.
Fair. Brilliant. Well, thank you so much for taking the time. Appreciate you once again.
Yes, thank you, Rohan, for having me here, and I hope you had a good podcast. I hope we got some great content for the podcast.
We did indeed. Thanks, guys. That's the wrap. Actually, this was so much more, less, I would say, tech focused, but more about the business of sports broadcasting and how those sports rights get monetized, and then the role that tech plays in helping broadcast and monetize those rights. Fascinating talking with Rajat, and also an insight to the Indian sporting ecosystem. If you wanted a quick crash course on how broadcasting works in India, this is probably your episode. All right, guys, that's a wrap. See you guys next week. Cheers.
Thanks for listening to the SportsTech Allstars podcast with Rohan Malhotra. If you like our show, let us know and leave a review. And if you want to know more about us, check out sportstechx.com, where you can find our latest industry reports and updates. For a deeper dive into all things sports tech, check out our comprehensive database, SportsTechDB, at sportstechdb.com. Don't forget to follow us on social media. You can find us at SportsTechX on Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Facebook. Join us next time for another insightful conversation with a leader in sports tech.